Hi, my name is David Klecker. I am the author of AutoHARP3, Harp Sci-Fi. Architect is an application that is basically a front end for you to customize the database for Harp Sci-Fi and Harp Sci-Fi Extreme. You're not going to be able to customize all of the databases, but you'll be able to customize most of them. With Architect, you will be able to customize your races, your cultures, your professions, talents, training packages, skills, the Psi Abilities, statistics, so on. You can even create new data, and you can even create a whole new book if you wish to do so. So the installation of Architect might be a little confusing. So when you installed Harp Sci-Fi, you installed the application and you would also install the database for the main book. So when you install Architect, you are installing the application, but this application is an upgrade. It's an upgrade that includes the logic for Architect, and thus you will get the main menu for Architect to appear right here when you install it. So if you install Architect without installing the main book first, you're not going to get the database that comes with Harp Sci-Fi. Architect doesn't come with a database installed with it. Architect is just the application. So the order of installations that you should be doing if you're going to be installing Harp Sci-Fi should be the main book first, and then you can decide to install either Harp Sci-Fi Extreme or Architect in any order you want. It doesn't really matter much at that point. All you need to get is that main application in there, and then everything is going to be just fine from there on out. Now, much of Architect is pretty straightforward when it comes to editing, but there are going to be some parts that can be a little confusing. So let's start from the top of the menu and let's work our way down. Let's go ahead and let's start with races. So the main window for each database file is going to have the same format that is shown here. You have a field where you can select the database to edit, and as you can see, I have two databases of which I can select. I have the Harp Sci-Fi main database, and I have the Harp Sci-Fi Extreme. If I select Harp Sci-Fi Extreme, you'll notice that no races show up. That's because I have no races defined in the database for Harp Sci-Fi Extreme, but I do have races under Harp Sci-Fi. There are going to be some databases that only have data inside of the Harp Sci-Fi Extreme database. That's going to be the Cyberware, Monster, Interstellar, and Vehicle Combat, for example. The other three buttons that you see here, Save Changes to Database, will just save your updates. Save and Return will save your updates and then return you to the last place that you were at. And Return Without Save is going to return you where you were at without saving. With races, you can customize an existing race here, or you can add a whole new race entirely. Now this main screen shows all of the races already installed into the database, but in order for us to understand how we can install a new race, it's probably a better idea for you to look at some of the existing races and see how they're installed or see how they're edited and put in. So we have the race name, we have the picture, and then we have its headshot. The picture is what you see here, and the headshot is going to be something along the lines of you cropping the image so that all you have is the head. Remember, that was something that was shown when we were deciding which race we wanted in the new character wizard. This was the headshot that was shown for each of the races that you had an option to choose from. For description, biology, technology, demeanor, lifespan, species limitations, and cultures, this particular race gives you these examples. So if you create a new race, you can use these as examples for how to fill in these particular fields. We also have these properties for height, for male and female, for weight, male and female. We have stamina, electronic, and will resistance bonuses that are here. We have the size of the creature, the endurance bonus, the psi energy bonus, and the starting age. PowerPoints isn't really used. It's a legacy from from earlier when I created this application, and spells were still sort of a part of it. I've eliminated that. But in the future, there was need for people that wanted to have like a hybrid of Harp Sci-Fi and Harp Fantasy. So I'm looking at the possibility of being able to load Harp Fantasy character sheets into a Harp Sci-Fi setting and vice versa. And if I do that, then these PowerPoints actually will be able to be used and come into play. Here's the statistics for the race. The stat bonus listed here is really just the racial bonus that's going to be added to your character. When you select this race, it'll be added to the racial bonuses for their statistics. If you place an asterisk inside of each one of those, it'll be like the human race. You will basically be indicating to the player that they need to put in their own racial bonuses, and the racial bonuses that they put in for each statistic must add up to 10. Now the talents, you can either select a talent straight from the database for talents, or you can just write in a talent and then have a description associated with that. So for example, I have a talent here, and if I click on, or if I just select a talent, for example, if I select accelerated healing, and then go ahead and click on this, I have a description of which is related to accelerated healing. I can always go ahead and type in what I would think would be maybe a different way of looking at this talent, maybe a different name, something that might be more related to a creature or maybe a more specific race. And then maybe I can make this talent be more applicable to the race itself by naming the race. And this would be more of a racial talent. But these talents that are here are specific to the race, and they're not something that I look up in the database for talents. I actually get all of the information about these talents here from the race. You'll also notice that if I click on these other arrows here, that we have these required fields. What this is doing is it's allowing for a bypass of sorts. When you are creating a new character sheet and you access, or let's say you select a race, that race usually comes with a set of talents. And most of the time, you're going to have 3 talents that come with the race. Now, human comes with 4 talents. And when you have a human race, what's going to happen is you'll select 3 out of those 4 talents. Now, there are actually races in Harp Sci-Fi that have 5 talents. And all of those talents are going to have to be part of the race, and they all have to go through. It's very difficult if the application itself says that only 3 talents can be selected for a given race before you can move on. The required fields basically bypass that. So if you have 5 talents and you want all 5 talents to go through, you have to set this required field to true, and then all 4 of them, if I selected this one, then all 4 of these are actually going to be acceptable for the race, and I'll be able to basically skip that requirement that says only 3 talents must be selected. If you're good with what you have done in terms of customization or adding a new race, you can always just go ahead and click on Update Race, and what that's going to do is it's going to bring you back to the main screen and say that you have updated the database with that race. I don't really want to do that, so I'm just going to click on Cancel right now. I really don't want to affect the database that I have right now with this application. All right, let's go ahead and check out the next one. Let's check out Cultures. Cultures is also pretty simple. It's the same as races. We have a list of the cultures for this particular database for Harp Sci-Fi. And if you wanted to add a new culture, it's always a good idea to check out an existing culture first. So we have the culture name that you're going to need to type in, a picture that you will show for that particular culture, description, preferred locations, clothing, decorations, demeanor. The adolescent rank section might be a little confusing, but I think it actually is pretty simple once you start to see how this works. So you will select a type first. So for example, let me go ahead and click on Add Adolescent Rank section. What you're going to do is you're going to select a type. Is it a starting language or adolescent rank? In the end, they're both pretty much the same. It's just that if you're going to be using this particular rank section to define a language that's going to be ranked up, or the user is going to have to rank up a language, it's okay to basically just select starting languages, but in the end, there really isn't a difference between the types. I put that in there on the off chance that maybe later on I might want a degree of separation. And when it comes to like the virtual and robot, there actually is a degree of separation there because you have to select 20 adolescent ranks and then 20 starting languages. So I have to kind of know which one of those ranks were part of the adolescent ranks, because you could have ranked the starting languages for all I know, and which one of those ranks actually were ranks for languages. Then we need to select the number of ranks that I'm going to be putting into this particular section. I'm just going to say that's 4. And then now I need to add skill, and all you really need to do with this one is select the skill that you want to add 4 ranks to. If you want the user to select from a list of skills that they can add ranks to, you can always go ahead and select choice. And you can do that by doing the following. I'm going to do general, I'm going to do spoken linguistics, and then I'm going, because spoken linguistics has sub-skills, and I don't care where they put these ranks, I'm going to select choice. So they can either put those ranks in racial, in common, or a combination between the two. If you wanted to, for example, let's say that I had an adolescent ranks, I wanted 4 ranks, and I wanted that to be a certain set of skills that are coming from combat. I don't want all of these. So for example, I could say skill name choice, and this will in fact include all of the skills for combat. Maybe I don't necessarily want that. Maybe actually all I really want is for the weapon skills, or maybe I just want like gunnery and weapon skills to show up as skills for them to choose from. So I can go ahead and do gunnery, and then that's going to be something that I can do as a choice. And then I can add in another skill, and that'll be combat, and that'll be weapon skills, and then that'll also be choice. Whoops. And so now I have a list of sub-skills that'll show up for this adolescent rank section when the user is creating a new character sheet and they're adding adolescent ranks to their character. For this particular section, it will bring up combat and will only bring up the sub-skills for gunnery and weapon skills, and you can choose to put where you want to put your 4 ranks for that. And that's basically how adolescent ranks, how you create them, how it basically works. All right, I'm going to delete this adolescence in general because I really don't want this to be in there. So that's gone, and then I'm just going to go ahead and click on Update Culture to show you how that actually looks. It's going to basically say Save Successful, Update Saved to the database. That means that everything has been updated and you're ready to go. All right, let's go ahead and click on Items. So items can be a little bit confusing at the get-go. I mean, mostly it's just how do I edit an item, how do I create an item, and how do I toggle all of these switches here so that I can create the item that I want. Before we even get to that though, we do need to make sure that we have our weapon classes and our weapon groups set up. I have a bunch of examples here already. These are all of the weapon classes that are a part of the application as of right now. And these are their types. You'll notice that I have 2 types, natural and non-natural. The natural types are weapons that cannot be taken away. So when you create a new character sheet, those attacks automatically appear in the attack section of the new character sheet, or at least of the character sheet, the main page. So those attacks are always going to be there. The non-natural ones are the ones that I have to go into the items and grab an item or buy an item for my character sheet, kind of inventory that into my character sheet and equip it, and then that'll make it part of my attack. So you can add a class, weapon class, by just clicking on Add Weapon Class. Go ahead and type in whatever weapon class that will be. Select the type here, and then go ahead and then start adding in weapon groups, whatever the weapon group name is going to be. Just keep adding in weapon groups until you are done. The reason why we do this is because there might be items that have a particular weapon class and a particular weapon group that item is a part of. Most of the time that's going to be weapons. So for example, like a broadsword. The broadsword is going to have a weapon class of, if I'm not mistaken, one-handed edge, and it's going to have a weapon group, if I'm not mistaken, of long blades. And that will therefore help me in the program define what list of weapons are actually going to be a part of that item sheet. So if I'm going to have an item like broadsword, I want that to be under one-handed edge and long blade, so that when they want to purchase a weapon, they will select the weapon class, or they'll select the weapon category, the item category. Then they will be asked to select a weapon group. What weapon group do you want to select your item from? And then that item will be categorized into that class and that weapon group, and so those items will then show up. I showed that to you when we were talking about how items were purchased in the program and the application. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. The armor quality information is quite simple. This is all basically coming from martial law, so the OB workmanship bonus, the DB workmanship bonus, all of that is a part of the rule set for martial law. So if you wanted to get some ideas of what that was, how that works. But as you can see, I mean, if I have an armor quality of normal, there really is no OB workmanship or DB workmanship bonus. There's no maneuver bonus or casting penalty. But if I have an improved, then I have that 1 OB workmanship, 1 DB workmanship, 5 maneuver, no casting penalty. So it's up to you if you want to put, like, if I have improved armor superior, if that's going to affect any Psi abilities, if that's what you want it to have. You can add as many armor qualities as you want. You can go ahead and change this up if you want. The armor material information is actually not existent in this database, but if you wanted to, you can go ahead. I do believe that I still have the logic for armor material still located within the calculation for the armor DB when you add armor to your character sheet. If you select a certain armor material, I do believe that that will actually get calculated into your DB. Now that I've gone through all of that, let's go ahead and close all of this up so that I have plenty of room for my items. To edit an item, let's start with just a simple edit for an item. Let's go ahead and select, let's say, futuristic armor, and I want to, let's say, update my hazmat suit. So I'm going to go ahead and select futuristic armor, and I'm going to select the hazmat suit. And this gives me the category name that I can actually type in a new category name if I want to. That's going to change the name of my category, and it's also going to add in a new category for my items. And then I need a category type. What does that category type do? Well, if I were to select a new category type, you're going to notice that the properties here have all changed. And if I select, let's say, partial armor, they have all changed. And if I select shields, they all change. Actually, shields is part of the same property setting. So the category type is opening up fields, property fields, for you to type in your information. So what item is, or what category type is going to give you the properties that you need to update for this particular item? Is this an item for armor? Well, then you have all of the properties that could exist for armor or suits or shields or partial armor or anything like that. Is it just general? Well, if it's just a general item, then we don't need to put in anything for armor. We don't need any of that stuff. I just need this information. If it's for, let's say, like vehicles, well, then I need to put in information for all of the vehicles, for all of this information. So all of that information is pertinent to the vehicle itself. But in this case, it's armor, so we're just going to go ahead and keep this selected so that I now have the proper properties shown here so that I can add in the correct information. I can change the name of the hazmat suit. Maybe in my world it's not called a hazmat suit, but it's called something else entirely. And then I can change this item type. Pick one of these item types. Doesn't matter which one you pick, but as long as it matches the hazmat suit. So maybe you have decided that this item is armor, it's ammunition, general weapons, melee weapons. The one thing that is important is the ammunition, because if you do select something, if you create something and you mark it as ammunition, it is something that will actually appear if you are creating a melee, or if you're adding a melee ranged weapon, or I'm sorry, missile ranged weapon to your character sheet. The items that have or that are set to ammunition will actually be selectable for that particular item, for that particular blaster or laser, whatever one you're using. So for armor, you can type in any of this information here. It's an armor name. It is a suit. It's a hazmat suit. It's a type suit. In fact, actually, the armor name itself is just a suit. The item name is a hazmat suit, but the armor itself is just a suit. The armor type is just a suit. It's not a piece. It costs 500. Weighs for this is actually going to be in grams, I believe, or kilograms. It's in. It is in metric. And then the casting penalty, there is none. And then the increment value, that's all for calculating the dB of the armor. The dB of this hazmat suit is a 5, and then everything else doesn't really need to be in here. The dB trained is for shield, ablative add-on, kinetic add-on doesn't really happen with suits. I could give this a quality right off the bat. I could even give this a material right off the bat if I defined that. And if I have anything for requirement, that would be separated with commas. One thing that I can show you when it comes to requirements is under futuristic range weapons, and if I select, let's say, the assault blaster, you will see that the requirements are actually listed here: medium blaster power pack, and if I needed to have more than one, I can separate that with commas. You'll also see that when I selected futuristic range weapons, I now have the attack weapons one that was selected. So all of the weapon information that is pertinent to this can now be, I can now start adding information into that. So cost, weapon class, look, there's the weapon class modern range that exists up here. We define that. It's right, where is it? Modern range, just right there. And there is a group, two-handed energy, two-handed projectile. It's right here, two-handed energy. So these are the classes that I defined above, and these are the groups that I have defined above as well. So to add an item, you just put in select the item that you want to customize and customize however you want. If you wanted to add an item, so for example, let me go ahead and let me reset this. Let me just go ahead and see if I can actually just click on this to reset it. I'm not quite too sure if that's going to work or not. Let me go to races, and then let me go back to items. I just want to reset this so that I want this all to be blank. So let's go ahead and I'm going to click on create a new item. And from here, this is going to allow me to type in and manually put in any information that's listed down here. So I can go ahead and just type in a category. I can set a type to that. I can type in its item name, and I can go ahead and assign a item type to that as well. Once you have created the item, then you can go ahead and save that item to the database. If you wanted to create an item that has a template, an item template, so let's say, for example, I wanted to create a ranged item that was something similar to a hunting blaster. So I'm going to cancel this new item actually. And so I'm going to select ranged weapons, hunting blaster. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click create new item. And right now what I have done is I have used the hunting blaster as a template to create a new item that is very related to a hunting blaster. Maybe I'm going to be creating what's called a hunting laser if one already exists. But let's say that the hunting laser did not exist. Well, then I can go ahead and use the hunting blaster as a template, and then I can go ahead in here and just make changes to the properties and create a hunting laser out of it. And that's items in a nutshell. So let me go ahead and I'm going to return. Actually, I'm not going to return without save. I'm just going to go to Architect menu box right here, click on Professions, and go on to Professions and show you how professions work. Professions are very simple. In fact, there's not a whole heck of a lot to talk about here. It's basically the same as races. It's basically the same as cultures. If we click on Adept, you'll see that we type in a profession name, we have a picture, we have a profession type. It's one of three. It's going to be a spell user, which is really nothing more than the Psi ability user, an arms user, and then a hybrid, which is a profession that uses both. So fusion might be a part of that, or any sort of character that has a hybrid. Like remember back in Harp Fantasy, if I'm not mistaken, the warrior mage was both a spell user and an arms expert. Favorite categories, that's going to be what your user is going to be, or the player is going to be adding ranks to for skills. When it comes to, for example, I add 2 ranks to any skill in artistic, 8 ranks to any skill in concentration, 6 ranks to any skill in general. Those are going to be my profession skills that are going to be, or my profession ranks that are going to be added to my character when I create a new character sheet. You can add a new favorite category by just clicking on this button here, selecting the favorite category and putting the number of ranks that would go with that. You can delete any one of these if you want to, and just, the idea is that you're going to have enough favorite categories that all of the ranks when added together is equal to 20. For profession abilities, you can add as many as you feel is necessary. And as you can see, some of these professional abilities are all going to be kind of similar. Like at first level, such profession gains this, and they can add a +10 to any skill. There's going to be these kind of professional abilities. But in some cases too, there might be very specific abilities that the profession actually gives to the player. Key stats are up here. We can add as many key stats as again is necessary. There are 2 key stats to this particular profession. And then with talents, I'm simply, just listing the number of talents that they can select. There are 2 selections that they can make. So they can select active sonic field tier 1 and then latent sonic field first field. If I wanted to add in another talent from which they can choose from, I can always go ahead and do that. For example, maybe I'm going to offer them 3 selections where they can do a latent sonic field first, and then they have an active sonic field for tier 1, and they can actually have a tier 2 right off the bat. Entirely up to you how you want to handle the talents for when it comes to professions. All right, moving on to skills. Skills can take a little bit of time to open. There are a lot of skills that are present inside of Harp Sci-Fi. So these are all of the categories that are listed in the Harp Sci-Fi database, and if you click on it, it will expand, showing you all of the skills. It gives you all of the information that is listed here, and you can customize any of this by clicking on the Edit Skill button, the pencil icon. Go ahead and change this up however you want. The subskill only just means that if you're going to have subskills as a part of the skill, You cannot rank the skill, you can only rank the subskills themselves. When it comes to the combat category, there are going to be these subskills that you see here. Clicking on the plus button will expand that and show you all of the subskills to each of the skill. Again, you can go ahead and edit any of those subskills. You can edit any of the skills. You can delete any skill. You can add any skill. The other thing you can do here is edit the resolution types. I have 6. If you want to add more, if you want to take some away, by all means go ahead and do that right here. Okay, let's move on to skills. As I said, the skill or Psi Abilities. The skills is actually pretty simple. These are all of the Psi Abilities that are loaded into the database. There's quite a few of them. And kind of like with Harp Fantasy, what ends up happening is you have all these Psi fields, these Psi categories. And inside of these Psi categories, we are going to have our abilities, and those abilities come from the standard list of Psi Abilities that we've created. So you can actually create a whole new set of Psi Abilities if you want, create a whole new category, and then include all of those abilities into that category if that's what you want to do. It'll work perfectly fine. To do that, you would simply just add a new Psi category. You would simply type in the name of that category that you would like, and then you would go ahead and start adding in the Psi Ability. So you would click on this plus button, and it's going to give you an option to just type in the Psi Ability that you would like to add, and that Psi Ability will come from this list. Another thing that you can do here is you can edit the tier modifiers. So at each tier level that they select when they're selecting it for like combat or to do as an action, these are going to be the modifiers. Again, you can add if you want to. If let's say you were going to make some changes to any of this, or let's say you want a 6-tier system, you can go ahead and add in a new tier. This is the information for the standard tier progression. So at each tier level, I've got a penalty, a Psi energy point that's being used, a standard range, a standard area of effect, and a standard duration. You can go ahead and make any customizations to that as you see fit. When it comes to the Psi Ability itself, you can go ahead and make whatever customizations you see here. You can go ahead and also edit the tier information as well. One thing to note is that there is a group column here. That basically means that what happens if there's, let's say, 10 of these tiers that you see here. Well, obviously we're not going up to tier 10. What's going on is there are 5 tiers in one group, and then there are 5 tiers in another group. So if that's the case, and I'm thinking I might be able to find one that might have something like that. Is it electrical melding? No, that's not one. Energy absorption. One of these is going to have, I guess I can just continue to keep looking until I find one. Obviously, I mean, that's it's probably, here we go. Here's one. So it's electrical control. And as you can see, there's a lot of different types of tiers that they can select from. In fact, there are 3 groups of tiers that they can select from. They can select the manipulation and control tier. They can either select a malfunction tier or they can select a hacking tier. They can't select 3 of these. They can only select 1 of these. But we group them like this because these tiers are all related, these tiers are all related, and these tiers are all related. So I just want to kind of keep them grouped so that all of the tiers show up that are related. So I'm not showing like tier 1 manipulation and control and then tier 2 malfunction. I want to show all of these tiers up front, and then I want to show all of these tiers right after that in order, and then all of the other tiers in order. It's mostly about how I display them. Alright, so if you wanted to add a whole new Psi Ability, you can go ahead and click on this Add Psi Ability and get to work on creating your new Psi Abilities. Let's go ahead and go into Talents. Talents is very, very simple. There's not a whole heck of a lot that's going on here. That just needs to load in all of the talents, as there's a lot. Add in whatever talent that you want just by clicking on Add Talent. Go ahead, type in the name, select its type, whatever its cost is, and add its description. The types, so a character type means that only the talent is meant for characters. For creature, the talent is meant for monsters. Racial, the talent is meant for a specific race. And for items, that talent is meant because of a specific item, like a bonus item. All just means that that talent can be used by anybody. And for the most part, talents are either going to be character or all. There's very few talents that are for creatures, and even fewer talents that are for racials and items. Okay, let's check out training packages. Training packages isn't so bad, but there is one part of training packages that can be confusing. Let's look at the Awakened of the actually, let's look at Combat Engineer. Might be a little bit down to earth on this one. So there's the package name, there's a package description, and we have our package categories, much the same as the adolescent rank category. So what are we looking at? We're looking at 2 ranks that are going to go into general computer operations. So those are automatic. Those are going to get added automatically. 2 ranks are going to go into technical and computer programming. 4 ranks are going to go into technical engineering transport. Now that might not exist as a subskill for engineering. So I can type it in here, this enter custom subskill. I'm going to just manually add that subskill when the training package gets added. We've got 4 ranks going into technical engineering, and then weapons as a custom subskill. And then I've got 2 ranks going into technical engineering, now choice. Now you'll notice that I have a type choice A listed there. And you'll see that I have a choice B listed here. As you can see, this is how the types work. I have 2 ranks going into a choice for engineering and 2 ranks going into another choice for engineering. And you think to yourself, well, why not just have 4 ranks? Well, the basic idea here is that this particular training package category is telling the user you are to choose a skills in engineering that you're going to put 2 ranks in. And then for the next one, choice B, you're going to choose other skills that you're going to be putting your other ranks in. Now, I don't really eliminate the skills. In fact, you can probably put the skills in the same place that you put them in choice A. But I put that type in there to differentiate between the 2 categories. That says this category is going to be a separate choice from this other category that's going to be, again, a separate choice. And so that's what this type field is. Label allows me to put in other information for that training package, so that information will actually be listed. So I can say for a label, choose 1 skill, for example. And then here I can say choose another skill. Obviously, I'm not holding their hand on doing that. These are just things, the labels that tell the user, this is how you should be doing it according to the rules. But again, it's up to the user to, I guess, do whatever they do in the program. I'm not, again, holding the user to, I'm not forcing them to do it this way. This label is just simply telling them this is how it's done in the rules. You'll also notice down here, we have 2 ranks that are going to go either into weapon skills choice or gunnery choice. And so that basically means that when they choose this training package, they're going to have a category up that says combat. And when they expand that, there's going to be all of the sub-skills for weapon skills and all of the sub-skills for gunnery. And they're going to be able to pick 2 ranks to add to any one of those sub-skills. Or, add 1 rank to 2 sub-skills. However they want, however you want to do it. And that's basically training package. It's very similar to the adolescent ranks. All right, let's go into statistics. Statistics is very, very straightforward. You're going to either customize any of these statistics. If you want to delete and then add a new one, entirely up to you. These are the stat points per cost information. So this is how much it costs if you are going to change a stat value from one value to another. So from 1 to 90, it'll cost 1. If I change a stat value from 91 to 92, it's going to cost 2, all the way up to 95. If I go from 96 to 97, it costs 3, all the way up to 100, and so on. Anything from 101 up to 999, which I seriously doubt you will ever reach, it's going to cost 10. These are the development points and stat bonuses, so you can add information or customize this if you want. So if their stat bonus is like a 62, then they will get a bonus, or I'm sorry, if their stat value is a 62, they get a bonus of 3. There is this development points column here. This is something that I could code. It wasn't anything that users liked. They don't really like the idea that development points are based on your stat values. They liked the flat value of 50. But I kept the logic in there on the off chance that people might want that, that kind of rule set back. All right, let's go into maneuver. Looks like we're kind of halfway through. Maneuver, again, is very, very straightforward. If you're basically defining a low roll and a high roll, and you're going to go ahead and define what the percentage, the bonus, the RR, the utility multiplier, and all of that. kind of appears that I have a few blanks here. I'm just going to put those blanks and I'm going to assign them double because that's what they should be assigned to. I'm going to go ahead and save those changes to the database. Here are my maneuver difficulties. You can go ahead and update this however you want. You can even go ahead and add in some if you want to do that as well. Let's go to critical. Critical is also very straightforward. It might take a little bit of time for this to open. There are a lot of critical tables and there's a lot of information for the critical table. So these are all of the critical tables that have been installed in the database, and if I click on this plus button, these are all of the locations that are part of the critical table. Like the Harp Fantasy main book, there's really no location, it's just a default location. And so if I go ahead and click on that, those are all of the critical attacks that are possible. So these are all of the steps based on the low roll and high roll. And it goes all the way up from -19 all the way up to 120. There is a lot here. There's a lot for you to fill in. There's a lot for you to look at. So if you ever wanted to create a new critical table, it is going to take some time to put in that table. Hopefully this is somewhat readable. I can always try to figure out new ways of presenting this information so that maybe more information can be shown on the screen itself. But that's literally all you really need to do to update the critical table information for a database. Combat. Here are my initiative modifiers for combat. I can go ahead and add any initiative modifiers that I want. Those are the modifiers that show up when I have the initiative action window showing up for combat. These are my actions, and I can always define a new action. I can always update or customize any of these existing actions. If I create a new action, I need an action name, the number of rounds that it takes for this action to complete. I need a category. Categories aren't really used in Harp Sci-Fi. They're used in Harp Fantasy, but they're not used in Harp Sci-Fi. So you can actually skip the category for Harp Sci-Fi. You don't need to type anything in there. Go ahead and fill in a description. What is the action type? It's going to be one of 3. You know, there's 4 listed here, but melee weapon and missile attack, when it comes to an action, are kind of the same. When it comes to the action itself, the action is going to determine, what kind of properties am I going to show. And when it comes to melee and missile, I tend to show the same amount. It's just that I tell you don't fill in some of this information because, first of all, for like a melee attack, you don't need distance. But pick one of these that works the best with the action that you've got created, and then go ahead and pick a fumble table that you would like to have used if that action is in fact fumbled. You can go ahead and add type. And it is possible for an action to have more than one type, so it is possible for like an action to have a maneuver and a melee weapon attack. It is actually possible for that to exist. Here are all of the fumble tables. So if you want to define a new fumble table, you can go ahead and just add in a new fumble table. And you can type in a name, and then you can go ahead and add in the attacks. You will notice that for each fumble table, there are in fact 4 attacks. It's split off in that way, but honestly, the way I've set this up is you don't have to stick to the 4 fumble section rule. You can actually have as many fumble sections as you want. You can expand the fumble table to as big as you want, because the way I have it set up, I'm just looking to see if you're between 1 and 25. I don't care. I'm not really looking at, there's 4 of these. I'm only going to see randomly. I'm going to pick the 3rd one. You're rolling, and I'm just checking to see if you're between low roll and high roll. So if you added 4 more of these and you changed the low and high roll so that it goes from 1 to 100, it'll work just fine if you did it that way. All right, almost done. I don't really have encounter for Harp Sci-Fi. There was no encounter table defined, so there's really no reason to do anything with encounter. Customizing monsters using Architect is actually pretty simple. There are these 5 buttons that are up here that will customize, for example, the sizes for monsters, but you'll notice that there's no information showing up here. You'll be thinking to yourself, well, if there are monsters, shouldn't they be showing up? Well, they'll show up if you select the Harp Sci-Fi Extreme database. These get installed when you install Harp Sci-Fi Extreme. And so now we have our monster sizes, which you can always add a size if you would like. You can add to the monster outlooks. You can also add the BMR types that you can select from. And you can also add in some information for power tables. This is just simply an encounter table where if the user rolls anything between, let's say, 21 and 40, they will encounter a monster that is up to level 3. The last thing we have here is an encounter location. This will basically, you will create locations, and then you will add monsters to those locations. So if you wanted to add a monster to that location that does not exist here, you can go ahead and click on Add Monster, and then go ahead and select the monster that you wish to add, like an orc. Of course, I already have an orc, so I don't really need to add that character, or that, I don't need to add that monster to that location. The last thing to show you is what it takes to add a monster to the database. So let's go ahead and click on an existing monster and show you all of that information. So this is all of the properties that you need to add for the main section of the monster. Everything here is pretty straightforward. So if any questions on that one, please just let me know. Maybe I can answer them in the comments. Talents is basically the same thing. Whatever you select here for a talent, the description is going to show below. You can add some notes to that if you wish. And if you want to add a new talent, just go ahead and click on New Talent, select the talent, and it will give you the description. And then that talent will now be added to the monster when they select that monster template. Same thing with attacks. You can go ahead and add attack, give the name of the attack, what is the category skill and sub-skill of that attack, what's their OB going to be, their ranks, their slat, what kind of critical type is it going to be, what's the size of the attack, and any notes that might go with that. Psi Abilities is the same idea. If you're going to add a new field, just select the field that you want to add, the OB, and the number of ranks that are going to go with that field. Also make sure that you have an active, highest active tier set for this monster. For skills, you're just going to select a category, a skill, a sub-skill, the OB of that skill, and then the number of ranks that are in that skill, and then any notes that could be helpful for the usage of that skill for that particular monster. And that's really it. That's all you really need to do to add a monster. So there's really no complication about adding a monster. There's just a lot of information that goes into it. Okay, Cyberware. So again, Cyberware is only on Sci-Fi Extreme, so I need to click on that database in order to see all of my Cyberware categories. So you'll see all of the categories that have been created already, all of the devices that are located in that category, and of course any sub-devices that are located in any of my devices are also defined. So how do we do this? Well, if you want to add a new category, you can add a Cyberware category by clicking on this button here. You add devices by clicking on this button here, and it will bring in a box that you can type in the device. And if you needed to add a sub-device, you can click on this, and it will bring in this button here, and it will allow you to type in sub-devices for that device. And that's basically it. Now, when it comes to the device itself, what we need to do, let's just check out what one of these devices look like. So let's click on the data jack. You will need to type in the skill that is used for this particular cyberware. You'll need to type in the number of skill ranks that are required in that skill, and then the base cost of the cyberware, its device itself, and then the description. And that's basically it when it comes to cyberware. There are also the armor cyberware information here. So when it comes to the armor itself, the only thing that, if, let's say for example, I'm using mature, then when it comes to CyberArm DB, you'll only get the DB 1, 2, and 3. You won't get 4 or 5. Cyberfoot, you will get DB 1, 2, and 3, and so on. If you select an advanced for technology for your campaign and for your characters, then you'll get to see all 5 of these. Let's see what else. EMP shielding, same thing. So if I have mature selected for technology, the only EMP bonuses that will show up will be 5 to 30. If I have advanced, then 5 to 50 will actually show up. You can add, you can change, you can do whatever you want with the cyberware information here. Okay, the same thing happens with interstellar travel that happened with the cyberware. The only information that shows up is going to be under the Sci-Fi Extreme database when we edit. So if you wanted to add Interstellar to, let's say, Harp Sci-Fi, you can go ahead and do that if you want, but it's probably easier to just keep it all in the one database. To keep it in one database here. As you can see, I have 3 sectors already defined, but if you wanted to add a whole new sector, you can go ahead and do that. You can add in as many sectors, and within each sector, there's going to be a series of systems, and with each systems, there's going to be a series of planets. And within each planet, there's going to be a series of moons, and you can continuously add sectors, systems, planets, and moons as you see fit. Now when we get down to the planets and to the moons themselves, there is going to be a ability for you to edit. So when we click on this edit button here, it's going to bring up the create edit planet dialog, and it's going to bring in all of the information for that particular planet. Let's see, it should have more information than that. So let me go ahead and click on, let's say, another one. Let's click on Venus. There we go. So you can see here, so I must not have anything typed in for Mercury, but for Venus there is some description there. There's a diameter, gravity here, rotation period. All of this information you can go ahead and fill in to the best of your ability, including a picture if one exists. And then down here we have distance to planets. Now this is only going to be for planets that are within your solar system. So if I were to go back here, all of these planets, like for example, I'm going to be traveling probably from Venus to Mars or Venus to the asteroid belt Ceres. All of those are going to be listed down here that you're going to have to type in, and you're going to have to put in how far is it to the near orbital elliptical. So if I'm on the planet Mercury and it's orbiting around and I want to get to Earth, well, if Earth is on its nearest orbitable elliptical, if I can even say it right, it's going to be 0.28, and if it's at its farthest point, it's at 1.72, and those are all in AU units. And that's basically it when it comes to interstellar travel. This could take some time to enter in, and of course I can always make things a lot easier. Just let me know if there's any changes that you would like me to make on any of this. Just kind of add those comments below. Last but not least, we're going to look at the vehicle combat database. There's a lot here, and I'm not going to really go over all of it. I'm just going to kind of show you some of the highlights of the vehicle combat stuff. So we have our initiative modifier, so this is all going to show up when we are doing vehicle combat. We have the actions table. These are all of the actions that you can take when you're doing any sort of vehicle combat. These are the fumble tables for vehicle combat. These are the OB modifiers that are defined for vehicle combat, and so on and so on and so on. Again, if there's any questions that you have on any of this, on how to change any of this information, please put those comments below. The last thing that I would like to show you is the Create Custom book. Now, let's say, for example, that you would like to create a completely different book, and maybe you would like to put in some new races, professions, some kind of miscellaneous into this book, or maybe you would like to create a whole new universe. One thing you can do is you can create an architect create custom book, and maybe this would even be an expansion book. So for example, I might even say this will be Harp Sci-Fi Companion. And so therefore I'm going to use this book as a means of putting in new information instead of adding it to the Harp Sci-Fi database or even the Harp Sci-Fi Extreme database. I'm going to go ahead and create this custom book. Now, one thing that's probably going to confuse you just a little bit is that you'll see that it's not in the select database to edit. The biggest problem that I'm happening right now is that these menu options, I'm having a hard time having any change happening from here and having that change be affected in the current window that is shown here. You will easily be able to get to that database as long as you just switch to another architect or just open up a completely different window within architect, and now you can see that the Harp Sci-Fi Companion is in there. All you got to do is just reopen a new architect window. Just click on any one of these customize options for the menu. Obviously the one that you are not on, select that one, and then that will bring up the database that book that you just entered. I'm just trying to initiate a repaint of the screen, but it's very hard to do that from when you select a menu from here. Beyond that, that is Architect in its full. Again, I may have glossed over things that that you're trying to figure out to make sure that you don't break your database, or maybe you have broken it and you're trying to figure out what exactly did I do it right. Please put those comments below. Hopefully over time, if I get enough comments, I might be able to recut this tutorial that can be a lot more useful to people. Again, thank you so much for purchasing AutoHARP3, and happy gaming.